The man who put that baby inside her had just locked his front door, turned off the porch light, and walked upstairs to sleep in clean sheets while she bled on a stranger's sidewalk. But he didn't know something. He didn't know that in 4 hours, a phone would ring. Not his phone, his wife's phone. And the voice on the other end would say 6 words that would burn his entire world to the ground. If you believe that fate always finds the ones who throw the helpless into the dark, subscribe right now and hit that bell. Because what happens in this story will leave you shaking. 2 years before that rainy night, nobody in River Oaks would have believed this story. Not a word of it. Because from the outside, Tendai and Sophia looked like everything love was supposed to be. They met at a fundraiser in downtown Houston, one of those rooftop events with string lights and champagne and people pretending to care about causes they couldn't name. Sophia was there because her mother made her go. Tendai was there because he saw an opportunity in every room he entered. And he noticed her first. She was standing near the railing, looking out over the skyline, holding a glass she hadn't sipped from. "You're the only person up here who looks like they'd rather be somewhere else," he said. She turned. He was tall, sharp jaw, clean fade, a navy suit that fit like it was made for him, white teeth, confident smile, the kind of man who made you forget what you were about to say. "Maybe I would," she said. "Maybe the skyline is better company." He laughed. A real laugh, warm and easy. "Then I better be more interesting than a skyline." He was. They talked until the event ended. Then they talked in the parking garage for another hour. He told her about his childhood in Accra, about coming to America with nothing, about building himself from scratch. He was charming and vulnerable in equal measure, and that combination unlocked something in Sophia she'd been keeping closed for years. They started dating a week later, and he brought her sunflowers every Friday. He cooked jollof rice in her kitchen and let her win arguments he could have easily fought. He opened car doors. He remembered the names of her cousins. He asked about her day and actually listened. 6 months in, he proposed on her mother's front porch, got on one knee in front of the whole family. Sophia's mother, Mrs. Diouf, watched from the doorway with her arms folded across her chest. She didn't clap. Later that night, Mrs. Diouf sat alone with Sophia at the kitchen table. "You love him," Mrs. Diouf said. Not a question. "More than anything, Mama. Tell me what you know about his life before you." Sophia smiled. "He came from nothing. He built everything himself. He's honest. He works hard." Mrs. Diouf tapped her finger slowly on the table. "Men who say they came from nothing, sometimes they're still empty. And empty men don't fill up with love, Sophia. They fill up with whatever is closest." "Mama, please. I'm not saying no. I'm saying my eyes will stay open, even if yours close." They married 3 months later. Big ceremony at a garden venue in the Woodlands. 300 guests, white flowers, gold chairs. Sophia's family paid for everything. And that detail, that quiet, easily missed detail, was the first thread of a truth nobody talked about. The house on Riverside Lane was a 5-bedroom estate tucked behind a row of live oak trees. Iron gate, circular driveway, a kitchen bigger than most apartments, floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room that caught the sunset every evening and turned the whole house gold. Tendai told people he bought it. At dinner parties, he'd lean back in his chair and say things like, "When I first saw this house, I told the realtor I'd take it before the tour was done." People were impressed. Men shook his hand harder. Women smiled at Sophia like she'd won the lottery. But the house was purchased by the Diouf Family Trust. Cash. 18 months before the wedding. The cars, both of them, leased through the trust. The brokerage account Tendai checked every morning on his phone, seeded with Diouf Capital. The company Tendai ran, a logistics consulting firm called Pinnacle Route Solutions, had one major client, Diouf Allied Construction, Sophia's family's company. Without that contract, Pinnacle didn't exist. Tendai wasn't a self-made man. He was a man standing on a stage someone else built. And the spotlight was so bright, he forgot the stage wasn't his. But there was one person who never forgot. Mrs. Diouf kept records of everything. Every dollar that moved, every account that opened, every contract that Pinnacle signed with Diouf Allied. She tracked it all in a leather binder she kept locked in a fireproof safe in her closet. She wasn't waiting for Tendai to fail. She was waiting to see if he was real. Things were about to get heavier, and the weight would fall on the smallest shoulders in that house. Halima arrived on a Tuesday in September. Quiet, 19 years old, thin frame, big dark eyes that looked at everything like she was memorizing it. She carried one suitcase and wore a dress her grandmother had sewn by hand in their village outside Bamako. She'd come to America on a work visa sponsored by a family friend. That friend connected her with Sophia, who was looking for someone to help around the house. And Halima spoke French and Bambara. Her English was soft and broken, but getting stronger every day. Sophia took to her immediately. "You remind me of my younger sister," Sophia told her that first week. She showed Halima her room, not a closet, not a corner. A real room with a window, a bed with clean sheets, and a small vase of yellow flowers on the nightstand. Halima touched the flowers like they were made of glass. "For me? For you." They became close fast. Sophia taught Halima English words while they cooked dinner together. Halima taught Sophia how to make tiboudien, a Senegalese fish and rice dish that made the whole house smell like home. On Sunday evenings, Sophia braided Halima's hair in the living room while they watched movies with the volume low. In a city where Halima knew no one, Sophia became her only family. "You are too kind to me," Halima said one night, her voice trembling. Nobody has ever been this kind to me." Sophia held her hand. "This is what we do. We take care of each other." Tendai watched all of this from a distance. He said the right things, nodded at the right times, but his eyes were doing something else, something Sophia didn't notice, but Halima did. He had one rule left to break, and he was already halfway there. It started the first time Sophia traveled to Dallas to visit her mother. A 3-day trip, routine. And she kissed Tendai at the door, hugged Halima, told them both she'd be back Friday. The first night, nothing happened. Tendai stayed in his office. Halima cleaned the kitchen and went to her room early. The second night, he knocked on her door. "Halima, come sit with me. I don't like being in this house alone." She hesitated. Something in his voice felt different, heavier. She came to the living room. He poured 2 glasses of wine. She told him she didn't drink. "Just sit with me then. Talk to me." They talked. He asked about her family, her dreams, her fears. He leaned closer as the hours passed. His hand brushed her arm. She pulled away gently. "Mr. Tendai, I don't think... You can call me Tendai. We're family, aren't we?" She went back to her room that night with her heart pounding. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the air like a shift in temperature. The third night, he didn't knock. He just opened the door. "Tendai, please, nobody will know. I can't do this. Sophia and I are finished. The marriage is over. We're only together on paper. She doesn't love me. She never did." Halima looked into his eyes. She saw something that scared her. Not anger, not lust. Calculation. The cold, smooth mechanics of a man who had done this before. "If you tell her," he said, his voice dropping low, "who do you think she'll believe? Her husband? Or the maid?" Halima's hands went cold. She was 19, alone, in a country where she barely spoke the language. Her visa was tied to this household. If she was fired, she had nowhere to go. No family, no savings, no safety net. Tendai knew all of this. He had counted on it. What happened that night, and the nights after, was not a choice Halima made. It was a trap she couldn't escape, built by a man who mistook power for permission. The next 5 months moved in 2 directions at once. On the surface, the house on Riverside Lane looked the same. Beautiful, warm, welcoming. Tendai kissed Safiya in the kitchen every morning. Halima served breakfast with steady hands. The neighbors saw nothing wrong, but underneath, everything was rotting. Halima stopped smiling. She moved through the house like a shadow. She lost weight. Her eyes stayed on the floor. She flinched when doors opened behind her. Safiya noticed. "Halima, are you okay? You've been so quiet lately." "I'm fine. I'm just tired." "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" Halima looked at her. The woman who braided her hair, who put flowers on her nightstand, who called her family. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Yes, I would tell you." She didn't. Then the morning sickness started, and it wouldn't stop. Halima spent 3 consecutive mornings throwing up in the bathroom before dawn. She tried to hide it, but her body was changing too fast. Her belly was rounding, her breasts were swollen, and her exhaustion deepened into something that sleep couldn't fix. She bought a pregnancy test from a drugstore on her day off, hands shaking so hard she could barely open the box. 2 pink lines. She sat on the bathroom floor and pressed both hands over her mouth to keep from screaming. That evening, she told Tendai. She expected panic. She expected anger. She got both. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Get rid of it." "I can't do that." "I said get rid of it." Halima." "I will not." His face changed. The charm fell away like a mask hitting the floor. What was underneath was something she had always sensed but never seen this clearly. "Then you need to leave, before Safiya gets back." "And go where?" "That's not my problem. This baby is That baby is your problem, not mine. Never mine." He walked out of the room, closed the door softly, and the softness of it was worse than a slam, because it meant he'd already made his decision. And he wasn't emotional. He wasn't conflicted. He was finished. The rain was the kind Houston gets in March. Not gentle, not soft. The kind that floods streets in 20 minutes. The kind that turns gutters into rivers. Halima was asleep when he came. 11:47 p.m. He opened her door without knocking. The light from the hallway cut across the bed. "Get up." She blinked. "What?" "Get your things. You're leaving. Now." "Tendai, it's almost midnight. It's raining. I'm 8 months. I don't care if it's raining fire, Halima. You're not spending another night in this house." He had already packed her bag. 1 bag. He'd gone through her room while she was sleeping, pulled her clothes from the closet, stuffed them inside, zipped it shut. He dropped the bag on the porch. The rain was hammering the concrete so hard the sound filled the entire house. Halima stood in the doorway, her belly pressed against a thin dress. Her feet were bare, and her eyes were wide and glassy. "Please, I have nowhere to go." Should have thought about that before. "Before what? Before you came into my room? Before you did this to me?" He stepped closer. His voice dropped to a whisper, ice cold. "If you open your mouth to anyone, to Safiya, to the neighbors, to anyone, I will call immigration. I will have your visa revoked. You will be deported, and you will never see this country again. Do you understand me?" She stared at him. Rain blowing sideways across the porch, water pooling around her bare feet. 8 months pregnant, alone, terrified. She picked up the bag, and she walked into the rain. Tendai watched her disappear into the dark. Then he closed the front door, turned off the porch light, walked upstairs, and got into bed. He slept, the kind of sleep that only comes to people who feel nothing at all. Halima made it 6 blocks. Her feet were cut from the gravel on the road shoulder, and the bag was too heavy for her arms. The baby was pressing down on her pelvis so hard every step felt like a blade. Rain soaked through her dress and plastered it to her skin. She made it to a gas station on Westheimer Road. The lights were still on. One car was at the pump. A woman, mid-40s, short natural hair, scrubs from a hospital shift, was filling up her tank. She saw Halima first in the side mirror. A pregnant woman, barefoot, soaking wet, dragging a bag across a gas station parking lot at midnight. The woman dropped the pump handle. "Oh my God! Hey, are you okay?" Halima's legs buckled. She dropped to her knees on the wet concrete. The bag fell beside her, her arms wrapped around her belly. "Help me," she whispered. "Please help me." The woman, her name was Adaize, pulled off her jacket and wrapped it around Halima's shoulders. She called 911 before she even asked another question, and the ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Halima was loaded onto a stretcher. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. Her contractions had started, too early, too fast. Adaize held her hand in the back of the ambulance. Halima gripped so tight her nails left marks. "You're going to be okay," Adaize said. I've got you. At the hospital, the team moved fast. Preeclampsia, emergency C-section. The baby was coming tonight whether anyone was ready or not. A nurse named EJ stayed at Halima's side the entire time. She held her hand through the contractions, wiped her face with a cool cloth, spoke to her in calm, steady words. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Stay right here. You're doing so good." At 2:41 a.m., the baby was born. A boy, small, crying, alive. Halima heard the cry and broke. She sobbed so hard the entire room felt it. Not from pain, from relief, from exhaustion, from the crushing, unbearable weight of everything she had survived to get to this moment. The nurse placed the baby on Halima's chest. His eyes were closed. His tiny fingers curled around nothing. He was warm. He was here. "My baby," Halima whispered. "My baby is here." Then the doctors asked the question that changed everything. "Is there someone we should call? An emergency contact?" Halima's phone was in the bag. Wet, cracked screen, but still working. The nurse opened it and found the emergency contact. And it wasn't Tendai. It was Sophia. Because Sophia was the only person in that house who had ever shown Halima love. The hospital called the number at 3:18 a.m. Sophia was asleep in her mother's guest bedroom in Dallas when her phone rang. She answered with her eyes still closed. "Hello? Mrs. Sophia? This is Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston. We're calling about a young woman named Halima. You're listed as her emergency contact." Sophia sat up straight, and the blanket fell off her shoulders. "What happened? Is she okay?" She was brought in with complications. She delivered a baby boy via emergency C-section about 40 minutes ago. She's stable now, but she's asking for you. "A baby?" The nurse paused. "Yes, ma'am. She was approximately 8 months pregnant." Sophia's blood went cold. "I didn't know she was pregnant." "She's asking for you, Mrs. Sophia. She's very distressed." Sophia hung up the phone, and she sat on the edge of the bed for 30 seconds. Her mind was moving faster than her body could follow. Halima, pregnant, a baby, hospital, 8 months. That meant the pregnancy started. She did the math, and the math led to one room, one house, one man. She drove to Houston in the dark, 3.5 hours. She didn't play music. She didn't call Tendai. She didn't cry. She just drove, her hands locked on the steering wheel, her jaw tight, and her chest burning with something she couldn't name yet. She walked into the hospital at 6:51 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and coffee. The first gray light of morning was pressing through the windows at the end of the corridor. A nurse led her to the room. Halima was lying in the bed, IV in her arm, eyes swollen, lips cracked. The baby was in a clear bassinet beside her, wrapped in a striped hospital blanket. Sophia stopped in the doorway. Halima saw her and immediately started crying. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sophia, please, don't." Sophia held up one hand. Her voice was steady, but her chin was trembling. "Not yet." She walked to the bassinet. She looked down at the baby, and the world stopped. The baby's face, the jawline, the shape of his closed eyes, the curve of his lips. She was looking at a miniature version of the man she had married. She didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She just stood there, staring down at the truth wrapped in a hospital blanket. "He came to me," Halima whispered from the bed. Her voice was raw and broken. "Over and over, every time you left. He said the marriage was finished. He said you didn't love him. He said he would take care of me. And then when I got pregnant, he threw me out. Last night, in the rain, at midnight. He said if I told anyone, he would have me deported." Sophia didn't move. Her hand rested on the edge of the bassinet, and the baby made a small sound. His tiny fingers opened and closed. "He told me no one would believe me," Halima continued. "He said I was just the maid. He said my word meant nothing." Sophia finally turned. She looked at Halima. This girl, this child practically, who had braided hair with her on Sunday nights, who had taught her how to make thé bourdienne, who had cried when Sophia put flowers on her nightstand because no one had ever done something that kind for her. And this girl who had been trapped in Sophia's own house, by Sophia's own husband, under Sophia's own roof. "I believe you," Sophia said. 2 words, quiet, absolute, final. Halima covered her face with both hands and wept. "If this story is making your blood boil right now, if you can feel the fire building in your chest, you're exactly where you need to be. Stay with me, because what Sophia does next will change the way you see strength forever." Sophia stepped out of the hospital room, and she walked to the end of the hallway. She stood by a window where the morning light was now flooding through the glass, and she called her mother. It rang twice. "Mama?" "Sophia, what's wrong?" "Halima is in the hospital. She had a baby. It's Tendai's." A pause. 3 seconds. Then Mrs. Diouf's voice came back, low, calm, and sharp as a blade. "I know." Sophia's hand tightened on the phone. "What do you mean you know?" "I've known for 11 months. I hired a private investigator the day after your first anniversary. I told you my eyes would stay open, Sophia. They never closed. You knew he was sleeping with her and you didn't tell me? I didn't know about Halima specifically until 4 months ago. What I knew before, that was worse. Your husband has been draining the accounts, slowly, carefully, redirecting funds from Pinnacle into personal accounts your name isn't on. He rented an apartment in Midtown, furnished it. A 1-bedroom on the 14th floor. Sophia pressed her forehead against the cold window glass. "There's more," Mrs. Diouf said. "Halima isn't the first. Before her there was a young woman named Keza who worked in your home for 3 months before you hired Halima. She left suddenly. Do you remember? He said she found another job. She didn't. He made her leave. Same pattern. Same threats. Silence. I have everything, Sophia. Bank records, surveillance photos, the apartment lease, Keza's statement. And now, Halima and the baby. Every piece of evidence is documented, time-stamped, organized. It's been sitting in my safe for months. Why didn't you show me? Because I needed you to see it yourself first. If I had come to you with a folder, you would have defended him. You would have doubted me. You needed to stand in that hospital room and see that baby's face with your own eyes. And now you have. Sophia's tears finally fell. Silent. Hot. Running down her face and dropping onto the hospital windowsill. What do I do, Mama? You do what our family has always done. You protect what's yours, and you remove what doesn't belong. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are Kwabena Diouf's granddaughter. You are strong enough to do anything. Safia wiped her face. She took a long breath, and something shifted inside her. The sadness didn't disappear, but something harder rose up beside it. Something cold, something precise. It's something that had been waiting behind her gentleness this entire time. "Send me the attorney's number," Safia said. "Already texting it." She hung up. She looked at her reflection in the window. Red eyes, wet cheeks, jaw set like stone. The woman who walked back down that hallway was not the same woman who had walked up it 5 minutes ago. Safia made 4 phone calls in the next 2 hours. The first was to Mr. Asante, the Diouf family's attorney for 23 years. And he answered on the first ring because Mrs. Diouf had already called him. "I have everything your mother compiled. I'll have the divorce petition filed by noon. Emergency motion to freeze all accounts connected to Pinnacle Root Solutions. Full forensic audit requested. Protective order for you and Halima. Can we change the locks? The house is owned by the Diouf Family Trust. His name has never been on the deed. You can change the locks today." The second call was to a locksmith. Every lock on the house, front door, back door, garage, side gate, changed by 2 p.m. The third call was to Diouf Allied Construction's chief financial officer. She instructed him to terminate all contracts with Pinnacle Root Solutions, effective immediately. No warning, no grace period. "But Mrs. Safia, your husband..." "He is not my husband. He is a contractor who no longer has a contract. Process it." The fourth call was to Tendai. He answered casually. "Hey, babe. How's your mom? Come home tonight. Everything okay? Come home, Tendai." He heard something in her voice. Something he'd never heard before. Something that made the back of his neck go cold. "I'll be there by 7. She hung up without saying goodbye. Tendai pulled into the driveway at 7:12 p.m. The first thing he noticed was the garage door. It didn't open. He pressed the remote again. Nothing. He got out of the car, walked to the front door, put his key in the lock, and it didn't turn. He tried again. His hand started shaking. Then he saw the envelope. It was taped to the door at eye level. A thick manila envelope. His name written across the front in black ink. He tore it open. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a divorce petition, filed that morning, signed by Mr. Asante. The second was a restraining order, effective immediately. He was prohibited from entering the property, contacting Safia, or coming within 500 feet of Halima or the baby. The third was a printed spreadsheet. Every transaction, every transfer, every dollar he had funneled from the business into his hidden accounts, every payment on the Midtown apartment, every lie turned into a line item. At the very bottom of the spreadsheet, someone had handwritten a single sentence in red ink. "This house was never yours, Mrs. Diouf." Tendai's legs went soft. He sat down on the porch step. And the same porch where he used to greet guests with a handshake and a smile, the same porch where he told people this was his house, his life, his empire. The sprinklers kicked on across the lawn. The evening light was fading. A neighbor walked a dog across the street and glanced over without stopping. Tendai pulled out his phone. Called Safia. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He called Mrs. Diouf. She answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Diouf, please. Let me explain. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to turn off the stove, Tendai. What you did was calculated. What you did was patient. What you did was cruel." Her voice was even, measured, like reading a verdict. "You pursued a 19-year-old girl under my daughter's roof. You threatened her. You used her. And when she carried your child, you threw her into the rain at midnight and told her she was nothing." Silence. You entered my family with nothing. We gave you a home, a business, a name, and you poisoned all of it." She paused. "Now you leave the same way you came in, with nothing." The line went dead. Tendai sat on the porch of a house that was never his, in a suit Safia's money had paid for, wearing a watch bought with Diouf capital, and for the first time in his life, he had exactly what he had earned. Nothing. Safia brought Halima and the baby home 4 days later, not to the maid's quarters, not to a back room, and to the guest bedroom with the bay window and the cream-colored curtains, the room that caught morning sunlight and held it like a promise. Safia had put fresh flowers on the nightstand, yellow ones, just like she'd done the very first time Halima walked into that house. Halima stood in the doorway holding her son. She looked at the flowers, then at Safia. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're family." "After what happened? After everything?" "What happened to you was not your fault. He targeted you because you were alone. He used your fear as a weapon. That is not something I will punish you for. Not ever." Halima's face crumbled. She sank into the chair beside the bed and held her baby against her chest and cried. Not the desperate, terrified crying from the hospital. Something different. Something that sounded like a door finally opening after being locked for a very long time. Safia sat beside her, put one arm around her shoulders. Didn't say another word. I just sat there, present, steady. The same woman who had braided her hair on Sunday nights. The same woman who had taught her English words in the kitchen. The same woman who, even now, even after this, chose love over bitterness. Mrs. Diouf arrived the next morning. She walked through the house slowly, room by room, taking inventory, restoring order. She found Tendai's clothes still hanging in the master closet. "Box them," she told the housekeeper. "All of it. Donate what's usable. I throw away the rest." She sat at the kitchen table that evening across from Safia, the same kitchen where Halima and Safia used to cook together, where laughter used to echo off the tiles. The house was quiet now, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not empty, healing. "You did the right thing," Mrs. Diouf said. "It doesn't feel like the right thing. It feels like my chest has a hole in it. That's what the right thing feels like sometimes. It hurts, but it heals." "Mama?" "Yes? How did you know?" "That first night, when he proposed. You didn't clap. How did you know?" Mrs. Diouf looked at her daughter for a long time. Then she reached across the table and held her hand. "Because your grandfather taught me that a man who tells you he built himself from nothing is either a miracle or a lie. And miracles, my love, don't need to tell you what they are." The woman at the gas station, Adaz, received a phone call 2 weeks later, and she didn't recognize the number. "Hello? Adaz? My name is Safia. You found a young woman at a gas station on Westheimer Road. In the rain. She was pregnant." Adaz went quiet. "I remember. Is she okay? Is the baby?" "They're both home. They're both safe. Because of you." Adaz pressed the phone against her ear and closed her eyes. "You stopped," Safia continued. "In the middle of the night. In the rain. You stopped. And because you stopped, my family survived. I need you to know that. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what very few people do. And I'd like to do something for you. If you'll let me." 3 weeks later, Adaz opened her mailbox and found a letter from the Diouf Family Trust. Her car loan paid in full. A scholarship established in her name at Memorial Hermann Hospital for nurses from underrepresented communities. She sat on her front step and read the letter 3 times. Then she called her mother. "Mama, you won't believe this." Nurse E.J., the woman who held Halima's hand through every contraction, was offered a full-time position at Diouf Allied's employee health clinic. Better pay, better hours, a pension, She accepted the same day. 6 months later, Sophia stood on the back porch of the house on Riverside Lane. The sun was setting. The sky was streaked with orange and gold. Halima was sitting in the yard on a blanket with the baby, and he was laughing, that full-body baby laugh that takes over everything. Halima was laughing too, real laughter, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and safe. Mrs. Diouf sat in a rocking chair on the porch. She held a cup of tea in both hands and watched her daughter watch over a family that had been rebuilt from the wreckage. "She's stronger than I ever was," Mrs. Diouf said quietly. Not to anyone, just to the evening air. Sophia turned and looked at her mother. "No, Mama. I'm exactly as strong as you raised me to be." Mrs. Diouf smiled, small, private, the kind of smile that carries decades of love in a single second. The baby laughed again. The sound floated across the yard and settled over the house like a blessing. "You know, Tendai thought midnight would hide him. He thought the rain would wash away his cruelty. He thought that a locked door and a turned-off porch light would be enough to erase what he did. But fate doesn't sleep. And fate was awake at 11:47 when he threw that bag on the porch. Fate was awake at midnight when Halima fell to her knees on a gas station sidewalk. And fate was wide awake at 3:18 in the morning when a hospital called the one number that would unravel everything. If this story left a mark on you, if you felt something rise up inside you that won't sit back down, then you are exactly where you belong. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Because on this channel, the selfish always lose, the gentle always rise, and the ones who throw people away in the dark, they always end up standing alone in the light with nothing.
Años exactamente, bueno, no exactamente, ¿no? Un grupo de soñadores en La Paz decidió fundar algo que trascendería generaciones. El glorioso Club Bolívar. No imaginaron que... Oye, me he esforzado al hacer el discurso. ¿Qué ponen ZZ, chat? Basta, me he esforzado, se los juro que me he esforzado, bro, basta. Por favor, me he esforzado en el discurso, respétenme un poquito, chat. Bueno, igual lo voy a leer, me la chupan, la verdad. Chat, nefastos. Son unos envidiosos, ¿saben? Son unos envidiosos. ¿En qué me quedé? No imaginaron que ese nombre se convertiría en un sinónimo de grandeza, lucha y de orgullo nacional. 101 años después, Bolívar no es solo un club. Es un sentimiento que se hereda, que se sufre y se celebra. Últimamente sufrimos mucho por Robato, ¿no? Es el latido de miles de hinchas que en cada victoria y en cada caída nunca abandonan, ¿verdad? Nomás. Porque ser celeste no es una elección, es una forma de vivir. Muy bien, qué lindo, un aplauso. Bravo, bravo. Muchachos, tremendo discurso. Buenas noches, Dieguito, ¿cómo estás? Por lo menos ponte tu chompita, pues, un busito para leer el discurso. A ver, cállate, Gabo, ¿vos quieres ser baneado? Este discurso lo he hecho en mi cama, pensando en lo que es ser bolivarista, la verdad. Un aplauso, por favor, y con ayuda también del gran ChatGPT. Un aplauso para ChatGPT. Ah, ¿cuál era la finalización de un ratito? Dice... que estos 101 años sean solo el comienzo de muchas más llenos de alegría. Felicidades, Academia. Felicidades, Bolívar. ¡Bravo! Aplausos para ChatGPT, muchachos. Para vos no, dice. Buenas noches, muchachos, ¿cómo están? Gracias por estar aquí, perdón por prender tan tarde. La verdad estaba viendo mi serie, estaba viendo el regreso de Justin Bieber. Bueno, toda la tarde me vi fútbol, hasta vi el partido del Tigre, vi el partido de River, vi el partido de Oriente, las declaraciones de Martins, tremendo lo de Martins, bebé, le tiró palo a Villegas, pero bien tirado. Huevada, en su cama lo hizo todo pajeado pensando en el... No, ¿qué dice este Arielito? Oye, ¿quiénes vamos, no? Mi sobrino de quién redacta mejor, dile eso a ChatGPT, yo no he redactado. ¿Qué me estás molestando a mí? Felicidades. Qué basado. Pues la verdad nomás. ¿Qué les diga? A ver, ¿qué les puedo decir, muchachos? Yo no publiqué nada en mi página. La verdad no hice nada estos días. Han sido momentos difíciles. Bien triste, ¿no? Mentira. Pero no, muchachos, bueno. Quiero felicitar a todos los que son bolivaristas y